Hello guys and welcome to my channel. I'm so sorry, this video is probably gonna go up really late because first of all, January was a very weird reading month for me because I was in a little bit of a reading slump, and also I didn't get any 5-star reads this month, so be warned. But yeah, better late than never, right? So let's get started. The first book I read in 2024 was Never Lie by Frida McFadden. And if you know anything about Frida McFadden, you know everyone raves about her because her books are so fast-paced and they really grip you. I was in a little bit of a reading slump at the start of the month, so I thought a thriller would be a good option. It's about newlyweds Trisha and Ethan, and they're looking for a house. They visit this estate that's for sale, and it's basically in the middle of nowhere. There's like no signal, no neighbors around, and they're also in the middle of a blizzard, but they decide that they're already at the house, so they might as well check it out, even though their real estate agent isn't there yet. So they basically break into the house and they just start looking around, and they find out that the house used to belong to Dr. Adrian Hale, who is a famous psychiatrist that has been missing for a few years. But the blizzard gets worse, so they're basically stuck in the house for who knows how long. And as you can imagine, weird stuff starts happening around the house, and the story takes off from there. This book was so gripping and fast-paced. Also, the plot twists are crazy. Like, I didn't see any of them coming. Every time I thought I knew where the book was going, it just switched up on me. But still, I ended up rating it a 3.5 stars because even though the final reveal was like crazy, totally unexpected, I didn't see it coming at all, I don't know if it actually makes sense. Was I shocked? Yes. But then I started thinking back to the beginning of the story, and I don't really, if I read it again, I don't know if the plot twist makes sense. Like, trying really hard not to spoil anything, but if you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. Did you also think it was a little weird? Let me know in the comments below if you think the final reveal makes sense or not. But is it a good book? Yes. Do I recommend? Yes. Will I read other Frida McFadden books? Definitely. So yeah. Then I picked up a graphic novel called Adulthood is a Myth. It's non-fiction. It's a collection of funny comics about the struggles of being a new adult. It's short, sweet, fun, hilarious. These comics depict very real struggles and issues we all go through in our day-to-day life, but usually ignore or don't talk about them as much. It's perfect if you need something lighthearted and fast and fun. Can't complain. I gave it a 3 stars. Then I picked up a rom-com, When in Rome. It's small town, grumpy sunshine, one of us is famous, and it also has found family. Amelia is this famous singer, picture Taylor Swift or something like that, who is feeling totally overwhelmed by fame and everything that comes along with it. And she's also a major Audrey Hepburn fan, so she decides to follow Audrey's steps in Roman holiday and decides to escape to the nearest town named Rome because she cannot actually go to Rome, Italy, because she has a tour coming up. So it wouldn't be wise for her to leave the country. So she just Googles the first town that comes up called Rome, and it ended up being Rome, Kentucky. She takes off in the middle of the night without telling anyone, not her manager, not her family. Like, she didn't tell anyone. She just packed a bag, took her car, and left. When she's about to arrive to the town, her car breaks down. Conveniently, it breaks down in front of a house. The owner comes out to try to help her somehow. Turns out he's a grumpy pie shop owner called Noah. And since it's the middle of the night, they can't really do anything about the car, so Noah lets Amelia stay at his house for the night, and things just take off from there. This book gives major Gilmore Girls vibes. Like, if you've watched it, you know what I'm talking about. The male main character, Noah, reminds me so much of Luke. Also, the small town vibes are, and the grumpy sunshine trope is on point. It's just the sweetest little book ever. This was definitely my favorite this month, and I gave it a 4 stars. I definitely want to move to a small town now. It's just really sweet, really lighthearted, fun. Then let's talk about the culprit for my reading slump, shall we? The Book of Azrael. Now, hear me out. It's a fantasy romance. It has enemies to friends to lovers. It's a slow burn. There's forced proximity. It has dual point of view. It's also grumpy sunshine. There's forbidden love. And the thing that intrigued me the most was that the female main character is actually the morally gray villain. I feel like it's always the male main character who's the morally gray villain, so that was really interesting to me for a change. So Diana, she's our female main character. She basically sold her soul to save her sister's life. She made a deal with this immortal creature named Caden. He's very powerful, very scary. People fear him. Now Diana works for him. She basically does anything he tells her to do. And he's also her partner, kind of. Really complicated relationship, but yeah, he owns her basically. And in this world, there's a myth about the world ender who was a king. Everyone thinks he's long dead, but in reality, he's just locked away in a different world. But when Diana attacks one of his men, he's forced to come back, and things go down from there. So right off the bat, let me tell you that the plot was good, the characters were good. I really loved the characters, actually. Diana is so funny, and Liam, the world ender, he's a very grumpy dude. So their dynamic is just amazing. This would have been a solid 4-star book if it wasn't for the writing. I'm not a picky person, okay? I do not care about the writing style in books, usually, unless it's like so incredibly good that I have to mention it, or so bad that it takes me out of the story. And in this case, it's the latter. Like I said, I'm not a picky person. I do not care about the writing style. Like, I read for fun. This is not English class. But the thing is, this book had so many typos, so many spelling mistakes, so many missing punctuations, repetitive sentences. It was just bad. So yeah, even though the story was so interesting, I had to reread sentences quite often or reread paragraphs. It just took me out of the story. Like, it was just bad, okay? I'm sorry. So I decided to rate this a 3.5, and I'm being generous because I really like the characters and the story, but it's a long book. I don't like getting stuck in books. I usually do not take longer than a week to finish a book. But this book I started reading at the end of December, and I finished it like halfway through January, so yeah, it put me in a very bad reading slump. This is the book I was reading before all the others I have mentioned, but I had to put it down and read something else because I was just stuck. Once I finally finished that book, I picked up The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This is a very popular book on Book Talk, Bookstagram, BookTube. So I'm late to the party, but somehow I didn't know anything about the book. I just knew it was historical fiction. It has a dual timeline, present day and Evelyn's past, and it's dual point of view between Evelyn and Monique, who is interviewing her. So she reaches out to this magazine and asks to do an exclusive interview with Monique Grant. Now, Monique is a reporter for the magazine, but she's not famous or anything like that. Like, she's not a well-known reporter. So everyone is wondering why Evelyn has requested her specifically. Even Monique doesn't know why. But of course, she's intrigued. Evelyn is this huge starlet. She doesn't want to miss out on the opportunity, so she meets with Evelyn at her apartment, and Evelyn tells her that she actually doesn't want to do an exclusive for the magazine, but wants Monique to write her biography once she passes away. And Monique is like, are you passing away now? Like, what do you mean? She's like, no, but when I do, I want you to write my biography. And she wants to detail everything about her life. She was very secretive while she was famous, so she's finally ready to open up and confess everything she has done. Just tell her story, good things, bad things, just everything. She just wants to tell the truth, and she wants Monique to write it and publish it and take all the rights for it. And she tells her that if Monique does not agree to do it, she's not willing to do this with anyone else. So of course, Monique is intrigued and she accepts, and the story takes off from there. And let me tell you, I understand the hype around this book. It's very interesting, very entertaining, lots of celebrity drama, and there's also the mystery subplot because we don't know why Evelyn chose Monique specifically. This is not something I usually go for, but it was very good and I definitely recommend. It's very emotional, very deep, very sad, so definitely check trigger warnings before going into it. The characters are very raw, very flawed, very real, which I liked. So I gave it a 4 stars. Then I read Ruthless Vows, which is book 2 after Divine Rivals. It's a fantasy romance, rivals to lovers, dual point of view, there's love letters, there's found family. You know, we just continue right where Divine Rivals left off. Of course, I cannot tell you a lot about it because spoilers, but I can tell you that it was not what I expected. Divine Rivals has a heavier focus on like the romance and Iris and Roman. There's like the backdrop of the war. Ruthless Vows is like the complete opposite. It focuses more on the war and the gods. Like, Iris and Roman are in the background now. There's a lot more world building, just not what I expected. I definitely liked Divine Rivals more because of the romance. I just feel like the vibes are different. I feel like the first book could have had a little bit more world building so that book 2 could have a little bit more romance and it would be more balanced, but whatever. But yeah, I still enjoyed it. Still enjoyed Iris and Roman. Their love is just so pure and romantic and like, you know, like old school. I also gave it a 4 stars. And then I was still in a fantasy romance vibe, but I didn't want to start another series. So I actually picked up a novella, a fantasy romance novella, Bound by Dragons. It has dual point of view, Grumpy Sunshine. It's insta love because obviously it's a novella. There's fae and there's also dragon riders, which I was intrigued by because if you watched any other video of mine, you know I really enjoyed Fourth Wing. So I was intrigued by that. So Bound by Dragons is actually part of the series, but the series is like a bunch of little novellas written by different authors. I think some characters make appearances in different books, but they're definitely all standalones. And I went into this one blind, and I feel like if you want to read it, you should go into it blind too, because it's more fun. All I knew is that it's a romance between a peasant who wants to become a dragon rider and like the leader of the dragon riders. He's like top tier in the dragon rider community. So I was very intrigued by this book because fantasy books are usually part of really long series, especially fantasy romances. It's a really good palate cleanser if you're in between books. If you just want a hint of fantasy, it's super short, very sweet, and there's dragons, so what is there not to love? 3.5 stars. And finally, I started Cultish. It's a non-fiction book. It's about how language influences people into cultish behavior. So it has a great premise, but I once again wasn't a fan of the writing style. Like, I got 20% into the book and then I DNF'd it. I just didn't want to fall back into a reading slump after working so hard to get out of one. I'm learning, guys. I'm learning to DNF books, even though I know it feels wrong to do so. I read for fun, you know? I don't like forcing myself to read. Life is too short to read a book you're not enjoying, you know? There's so many good books on my TBR, so why should I waste time reading something I'm not enjoying? So yeah, I DNF'd this book. Again, the writing style wasn't for me, so yeah, that's that. So as you can probably tell, this was a very weird reading month for me. I kept jumping around genres because I didn't know what I wanted to read. I'm a huge mood reader and I didn't know what I was in the mood for, so I just kept going all over the place. I was trying genres I don't normally go for, like historical fiction and non-fiction, but it wasn't that bad either. There's a lot of 4 stars, a lot of 3.5 stars. Even a 3 star is a good rating. It just means the book was okay. That was January. Let me tell you, I'm so excited for February. I'm recording this on Valentine's Day, so happy Valentine's Day. And let me tell you, things are looking way better in February, so stay tuned for the next wrap up. Just to give you a little tease, I'm reading Akatar, A Court of Thorns and Roses, for the first time ever. And yeah, stay tuned for February's wrap up. And if you want to see real-time updates, I usually post on my stories over on Instagram, letting you know what I'm currently reading and some thoughts. I also update on Goodreads, so definitely go check those out if you want real life updates. If you don't, then just wait for the next wrap up. And yeah, if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Yeah, I'll see you in the next wrap up, which should come soon because we're already halfway through February, and I promise to not delay recording these videos anymore. So yeah, I'll see you in a few weeks.